US President Donald Trump said on Monday the military had shot down 7 Iranian small boats in the Strait of Hormuz. Earlier, the military said it destroyed 6 Iranian small boats and intercepted Iranian cruise missiles and drones fired by Tehran as the US launched an operation to free up shipping through the Strait of Hormuz. The operation comes as US forces work to ensure safe passage for commercial shipping through the Strait of Hormuz under an initiative called Project Freedom, announced on Sunday by President Donald Trump. Meanwhile, Iran denied any boat had been sunk and earlier fired warning shots at US warships. Iran's Navy said that no commercial vessel or oil tanker had passed through the Strait of Hormuz in recent hours, rejecting US military assertions that American forces had escorted ships through the Strait of Hormuz. The United Arab Emirates said its air defenses were engaging missile and drone threats on Monday as firefighters battled a blaze at a major oil industry zone. The United Arab Emirates said Iran launched 4 cruise missiles during the latest attack. According to the Defense Ministry, 3 were intercepted by air defense systems, while the 4th fell into the sea. At the same time, a drone strike sparked a fire at Fujairah oil industry zone. The Gulf Arab States Foreign Ministry said in a statement that the attacks marked a serious escalation and posed a direct threat to the country's security, adding that the UAE reserved its full and legitimate right to respond. 3 Indian nationals were injured after Iran launched missile and drone attacks, with one strike triggering fire at Fujairah oil industrial zone. The Embassy of India, Abu Dhabi, said it is coordinating closely with local authorities to assess those affected. Multiple flights bound for the UAE diverted to Muscat in Oman, while other inbound aircraft circled over Saudi Arabia, according to flight tracking service Flight Radar 24, as the attacks caused widespread disruption to air traffic. The United Kingdom, France and Canada also called for de-escalation in West Asia following reported attacks on the United Arab Emirates, condemning the drone and missile strikes targeting the UAE. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer said that the escalation must cease and that Iran needs to engage meaningfully in negotiations to ensure the ceasefire in West Asia endures and a long-term diplomatic solution is achieved. French President Emmanuel Macron has condemned Iran's strikes on the UAE, describing them as unjustified and unacceptable and pledging continued French support for the allies in the region. The French president called for a lasting solution to the ongoing conflict through 2 conditions, that is, the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz to free maritime traffic and a robust agreement providing necessary security guarantees to the regional countries. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, in a social media post, expressed solidarity with the UAE and reiterated his call for de-escalation and diplomacy in the region. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, meanwhile, urged Tehran to return to the negotiating table following Iran's reported strikes on the UAE. The German Chancellor strongly condemned the attacks on the UAE and expressed his solidarity with the people of the Gulf nation and other partners in the region. Posting on social media, the German Chancellor said, and I quote him, "Tehran must return to the negotiating table and stop holding the region and the world hostage. The blockade of the Strait of Hormuz must end. Tehran must not acquire a nuclear weapon. There must be no further threats or attacks against our partners," and I unquote him. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi on Tuesday said the current situation in the Strait of Hormuz makes it clear that there is no military solution to a political crisis. Araghchi, in a social media post, said, and I quote him, "As talks are making progress with Pakistan's gracious effort, the US should be wary of being dragged back into the quagmire by ill-wishers. So should the UAE. Project Freedom is Project Deadlock." All right, our correspondent Akshay Dongre is joining us for more. Akshay, we see that there is no let-up, no respite to the crisis in West Asia. Added to that, the spillover effects are being witnessed again in the UAE. What is your evaluation of the crisis and how do we expect it to pan out further?
Well, we expect the crisis to expand if the situation doesn't get into control within the next 24 hours to 48 hours, because the situation is quite it's quite serious right now. Now, other countries getting dragged into more direct confrontation can also lead to confrontation among those countries as well, which cannot get in control of even the US. If it goes out of hand, can lead to another crisis in the region itself, and will lead to catastrophic ramification for the world oil supplies, world economy. The prices of basic commodities across the countries, not just in India but across the world, especially when we are looking at the global south. We're looking at the prices of oil going up, price of gas going up. That in result, the import bills of these countries also going by a significant margin, and that is going to lead to an inflation and perhaps a recession-like situation to the global economy as well. Now, all of this has happened. Why? It has all happened because the US fails to take action as far as the peace plans are concerned. There are proposals, there are peace plans, but it keeps on acting on its whims and fancies. It keeps on acting on, on as far as its ill-advised are concerned for continuation of the war, and the impact is being felt around the world. U.S. leadership now really will have to look and see that what are their decision like, and where are they taking the world and the global peace, in which direction are they taking the global peace into. So it's going to be quite difficult in order to understand that what is going to be the exact situation in the next 48 hours. But if this situation doesn't get in control, then the sort of war of attrition, or even if the sort of gradual turn down of the war that we were expecting will exactly not happen, and in fact it will expand, bringing in more countries and more parties into the conflict, perhaps making it a regional conflict as well.
Yes. Also, Akshay, what do you make of, what goes further when you talk of Strait of Hormuz? Because Iran has replied with a project deadlock as against US's Project Freedom. So put this together, how do we see the situation, specifically when we talk of Strait of Hormuz, further pan out?
Well, the situation has been quite complicated from the very beginning. Now, the seizing of the Iranian small vessels, and now Iran hitting back with its own, attacks at neighboring countries, especially the countries that it seems are, the most sort of allied to the US, to Israel, and are against Iran. Then the situation, if the Strait of Hormuz is choked completely, then the oil prices are definitely going to go up. Again, the same thing is going to happen. The price of basic commodities will go up, and the situation will turn even more complicated to resolve than it was previously thought. And it seems that the US leadership right now has no response but to continue with the sort of conflict and airstrikes and other things that US President Donald Trump has been threatening the world with. Especially just a few days back, he said that the conflict and US action, an airstrike could soon begin if the situation doesn't get resolved around the Strait of Hormuz. US also doing a sort of a counter blockade, talking about piracy of the smaller boats of the Iran, are not making it easier either. So the situation remains complicated and is being complicated by both the sides.
All right, Akshay, we'll leave it here. Thank you so much for joining in with those insights.